All right.
Here we go.
Welcome to You're On in 5, The Art of Understudying.
The only podcast to celebrate the work of actors in understudy roles.
Understudying demands tons of preparation with minimal rehearsal.
Or sometimes none at all.
But it can end in triumphant glory.
In these conversations, we'll amplify the diverse voices of actors who have understudied. We want to hear about the artist's technique, experience, and journey.
As well as whatever's on our mind that day. Hi, I'm Scott. I'm an actor, teaching artist, and lots of other creative stuff. You might know me from a production of Promises at Jedlicka Performing Arts Center back in 2009. I played Chuck Baxter.
Ooh, and I'm Elana. I'm an actor, a producer, and I have the curiosity of a 5-year-old. You might know me from a Career Builder commercial that I never saw, but maybe you did.
Awesome. And our guest today is the wonderful Kat Evans.
Hi, friends.
You might know Kat from Rough Crossing, presented by First Folio Theater in 2014, which I was also in. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
Yeah. For those of you listening, Kat and I actually worked together as understudies on 2 shows in our life, which is probably more than I've ever understudied with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kat, we start every episode with this question, which is, what was your first understudy experience?
Does it have to be in Chicago?
No.
All right. I'll tell you both, if I may, I'll tell you 2 quick young stories.
Okay.
One was 6th grade, middle school, and I got into the chorus of the big musical, which was rare for a 6th grader. But the mean girls were mean, and so I didn't do well in the chorus, but I didn't want to drop out of the show entirely. I just didn't want to deal with the mean girls. So I dropped out of the chorus, but went to the director and offered to be the universal swing for every role in the whole show.
Wow.
And because I just really wanted to spend my afternoons at a rehearsal every day.
Okay.
It was an original musical called Once Upon a Time in the Future. And it involved, like shady dealings with a government figure putting prisoners to work, and then this smart lady scientist that uncovers it. It was really politically brilliant. I loved it.
Wow. Did you ever go on?
I did not go on.
Okay.
I did not go on. I did become a really good prompt girl. I held
Okay.
the script and prompted people when they lost their lines. So I had a couple of, I was there at every performance, backstage even.
Yeah.
And then in high school, my freshman year of high school, I lived in Oxford, England. And I was going to Cheney Upper School, and their big school musical was Calamity Jane.
Wow.
Which was a Doris Day vehicle.
Yes.
It's a terrible musical and probably a dumb movie. I'm not quite sure. I've never seen the movie. It's really, really dumb. But, so it's a American cowboy. But you can't see my air quotes, listeners, but, it's, especially for gender stuff. It's not great. But I was given the one scene, one solo jerk role, the bitch role, Adelaide Adams. And I was really proud of myself as a new girl in town, and I landed this. But again, just me being the sort of all about Eve, Nick Bottom that I am, I just went to the director and offered to understudy Calamity.
Oh, wow.
And who was, of course, being played by a 6th former, which meant sort of their senior.
Okay, yeah.
And apparently she didn't show up to several rehearsals. And so they fired her. And I moved up.
Oh.
And so I ended up playing Calamity Jane.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I mean, yeah. When you're this is probably a little bit before you had acting training. How did you kind of make that jump from being understudy to being in the cast?
Oh man, I mean, I'm pretty sure as a freshman in high school, I was a massive pain in the ass to everyone around me, and sort of all about glory. And I don't think I endeared myself to many English people who were at that school. But I was so excited. I threw myself whole hog into it. I probably already had it half memorized. I mean, we hadn't gotten to performances yet, right? We were still in rehearsals, but I was so excited and loved the role and loved every second of it. And I think in that instance, I think they cut every male solo in the show because all of the boys either couldn't or wouldn't actually sing.
Wow.
I think maybe. Yeah, but anyway, so those are my earliest understudy.
That's so cool.
That is really cool.
So those were younger age Cat.
Mhm.
What about after that? When did you understudy next?
I understudied at Metropolis in Arlington Heights. I was in the chorus. I was in the ensemble for Baby the Musical.
Oh, I remember that. I saw that.
And I had an amazing overstudy, Leslie Ann Shepard, who is a genius and a half. And I absolutely loved being her understudy. She's incredible.
Yeah, I went to college with her. She's amazing. I love her.
I'm a fan. It's hard not to be a fan of Leslie Ann.
Yeah. Well, Baby, that must have been, and I'm referring to the show, not you as Baby. That must have been after Cupid and Psyche then, right?
Is that right?
I think so, because I knew you
those
already.
Verb shows, the Cicero in Arlington Heights, that was like a certain period of my career, more air quotes.
True. Yeah,
like there was the time
out,
when I had a vehicle or was simply willing to do those drives. And so I did a couple of shows down at Jedlicka, including the Midwest premiere of Cupid and Psyche, where you and I both were the swing for the two. There were two female roles and two male presenting roles, Venus and Psyche and Cupid and Mercury.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? And so we both were swinging.
Was Pan too. Yeah.
Right. We're both for swinging for both roles. But then we also really beefed up our ensemble roles. We referred to each other as Thing 1 and Thing 2. We managed to insert ourselves as backup dancers and backup singers in several songs. And it was a premiere, so the director was really into it. We had costume changes. You added Beyonce choreography at one point.
I did? Did we do a little single ladies?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we had that was a lovely time.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, signing on to that show, and this is one of the first professional shows that I did in Chicago. Because the Jedlicka is like, there are good people and great artists work there. But it's also kind of like, it's suburbs.
Well, it's also some of the nicest facilities you're going to get.
Oh, they always are in the suburbs.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're really, really nice buildings.
Truly lovely theater with dressing rooms and bathrooms.
Yeah.
What a luxury. Running water.
Yes. Yeah, it was on the campus of Morton College.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that show, and I ended up doing the following show, which opened like a month later, and then Promises came later that year, and then never again.
Yeah, I did The Nutcracker Sings, which was the same composer, Jawan Kim.
Oh.
And that was a world premiere. I played Natasha the Russian doll in that one. And then I also did A Year in the Death of Eddie Jester, which was a play where the main character is in a coma through most of it, and the actor playing him is like his spirit wandering around while the rest of us deal with the comatose person in the bed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a very dark comedy.
Yeah. Well, they had great audiences there, though. I gotta
did.
say, like they
Which
bust
I
them
can say
in
that about
from-
Arlington Heights too. Their
Yeah.
suburban audiences can be faithful and wonderful.
Yeah, very supportive. So when we got the roles on Cupid and Psyche, we were offered basically, I if I remember correctly, and this is so long ago that I almost certainly don't, but it was that they offered us swing roles, and like the chorus parts were kind of like, we'll see what happens with this.
Yeah, as I recall, the original idea was you get to stand in the pit with Jimmy and the musicians, and you can sing from the pit. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. We'll get to, whisper and be cute in the pit. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But because it was a premiere and Eddie was really into adding props. Remember we got bubble guns?
Yes, we had bubble guns and we also had a confetti cannon.
Confetti cannons. Eddie was really
cool.
who was our Eddie
Sugarman.
Sugarman was our director and really into building comedy, especially prop humor wherever he could.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure if I mentioned this show by name previously on the podcast, but I feel like I have talked about it because it was my first understudy gig. And I would not have been ready to go on in any way whatsoever. So I have my reasons for that. They're not great, but I kind of want to get your thoughts on that and how prepared you felt and if being in the show maybe got in your way a bit at all.
No, I felt like being there meant a lot of my memorization work was done for me. I'm very audio. And so when I hear it over and over again by others, that is the surest way for it to go into my brain other than me saying it out loud in real time. So I found that super helpful. Learning the songs for both Psyche and Venus was fairly, and it wasn't that it wasn't a dialogue. There was plenty of dialogue in the show, but this was not Shaw. This was not Stoppard.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And I remember the lady who played Venus once made it maybe 5 minutes before places. And I was like, put me in, coach. I mean, I think I kept saying like, do you think I should put on her costume? They were like, no, you shouldn't.
Oh my gosh!
And then so Brittany, who was playing Psyche, I think she informed me immediately once we started. She was like, "I will never miss anything. You don't need to learn my part." Noted.
Right.
We became great friends. She is a lovely, lovely human.
Yes.
But yeah, I also believe it. I think she's probably made of steel and would never miss a performance, even if she were bleeding out several wounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So that stands in great contrast to me. And I don't know if maybe I'm trying to figure out what the fuck was my problem. I mean, granted, I had just moved to the city like a year before and was much more interested in being on stage than understudying. And I'm not sure if we were even like in like music rehearsals, if we were given like an opportunity to sing in place of the principals. I don't remember that happening at all.
I don't think we ever got an understudy rehearsal.
Oh, no.
Maybe in music rehearsals. I feel like our music director would have had us do something to make sure we had, because you had to do you had a duet with yourself, right?
I would have, yeah.
Yeah. So you would have had to learn 2 parts on one song.
Yeah.
Psyche and Venus have almost no scenes together, maybe just one towards the end, and there's no song in there. That, I think, was a mistake on the behalf of the writer and composer. They really should have had the villain and the heroine have a lovely duet when they confronted each other at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Whatever.
But yeah, they definitely sort of expected us to be ready, but I don't think we were given any formal rehearsals in that process.
Yeah.
But we were given lots of choreography as thing 1 and thing 2.
Yes. Yes, so much choreography. And I mean, that's probably where I like lost it the most, because if I was learning my own choreography and then I had to learn the principal's choreography, I was not equipped for that. And I mean, like, I could have said something.
Or any of us, yeah. I certainly wouldn't have known the blocking very well. I'm pretty sure I had all words, but I definitely would not have had much blocking, although I'm pretty sure Venus really didn't move all that much. She was always sort of park and bark kind of role.
Yeah, well, we were pushing her around on a cart most of the time.
so true.
So yeah, it's a weird experience for me to look back on, especially like doing this show and being like, supposing myself an expert on understudying, when I definitely blew that one off. Now, I mean, granted, it was a lot more work than we were getting paid for, certainly. And, I had other jobs at the time.
Were you playing Lincoln at that point?
I was doing Lincoln at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was doing a one-man show at schools. And I was busy because we premiered in January, and Lincoln gets really busy in January, February, March. So I actually lost my voice during the next show, too, which was really scary because I had 4 shows the next day for Lincoln. And I was just like, I can act it out. I just can't use my voice. So they had the stage manager read all my lines as I acted out this play.
Oh, wow. You got to be a Muppet.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. I kind of liked it. Okay, so you understudied on Cupid and Psyche. You understudied the amazing Leslie Shepard on Baby. What else have you understudied on?
I was hired as an understudy for the vagina monologues up at Metropolis in Arlington Heights. But again, fortune smiled upon me, and whoever had the role left the show before rehearsals began. And so I got upgraded and then ended up doing that show 3 times. We did 3 runs of the vagina monologues. And so thanks to whoever I never met that person, but I did 2 runs of that show up in Arlington Heights, and then the show went to the Copley out in Aurora. This was before the Copley and the Paramount, before they came back as a big equity powerhouse. They were thinking about those things. And so the vagina monologues was one of their attempts to get life back into those theaters. So I never... I agreed to be the understudy, but then I ended up claiming the role. But yeah, other than that, I did Rough Crossing with you at First Folio. And, the last time I got hired to be an understudy, it was 9 months before the show began. And then about 3 months before even rehearsals began, they had to move the production back a week, and it suddenly began to overlap with another gig. And so I had to give it up, and I was very sorry about that because it was an equity, one of those companies. I was like, oh, I would really like to get to know you and become part of this. That would be really, really neat. And but I had a lead in another world premiere and chose that. Rather than the understudy gig with the equity house. The world premiere was with a non-equity small house where I work a lot. So those are my 4 vagina monologues. The one I was gonna understudy but then didn't was Frankenstein at Remy Bumpo.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the 2 with you, one with First Folio and one with Jedlicka.
Yeah. So you said that it kind of seems like understudying comes very easy to you.
I'd say hearing things a lot makes me memorize them. That's the only thing that's easy.
I see. Okay.
I wouldn't say I find understudying easy. It's just that when I get to listen to something many times, that's the surest way for me to remember it. But I find choreography, dancing is probably the scariest thing to me. And so that kind of call and not knowing where I need to put my body in the right way and things like that's pretty terrifying.
What do you think, Kat, since it's a matter, the ease has just been kind of associated with hearing and then learning it that way, do you think that's what drove your query to be like, hey, I want to do that, because you were learning it? Or was there something else about just creating a potential opportunity to perform, what drew you to be, because a couple of those times you were already in the show, right? And then you just wanted to also understudy. So what?
Well, the times I asked for it, I was, under 21. And that was probably just more of an ambition move.
Yeah.
Sure.
I do remember I was not an understudy, but was in the chorus in a musical at the Bailiwick. It was called Bear, a pop opera, a tragic gay love story set in a Catholic boarding school. And I was not an understudy for any of the roles, I don't think, but I just happened to have nearly everybody's song lines memorized. And so when people would miss rehearsal and nobody would sing their parts, I just would. And I remember the director at one point calling it out and being like, Kat Evans knows it. And I kind of went, did a little take. And he said, that's what we love about you, Kat Evans. We know you're ready to be anybody's understudy. Oh, we could contrast this with, say, Rough Crossing, right, which
Yeah.
is a stoppered, and it's lines, and more lines. And were you a swing for that one too? Did you have 2 roles you were doing?
I did. Yeah,
That was so much text to memorize. And there was another moment where my amazing overstudy, who I absolutely think is divine and I would do anything to work with her again, but didn't make it to the theater until about 5 minutes before places. And I was like, put me in, coach! I was so ready. I wanted to do it so bad. But she arrived. She'd been in the ER with something with her eye. But she had made it to the show, and so I didn't go on. And that one, we're all doing dialect work, and it's stoppered, so it was 30,000 words.
Yeah.
That was a scarier process, and I know that we spent time with each other a lot of time, because especially the boys were all swinging. I think you all had multiple roles you were doing. I just had being an early stoppered play. There weren't many women in it, just the one.
Yeah.
But I had to do like a Bulgarian accent, I believe.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Oh, wow. Yeah. And I think Dvoracek and Fish, my characters, were both British accents. Because I think Dvoracek would be Russian, but I think he spoke British, right?
Mm-hmm.
Accent. British.
He spoke
language.
British.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean. But I think one of the other guys was understudying the 2
Playwrights, right?
playwrights. Okay, yeah. And then there was one who was just understudying Alex.
Right. Who was like the composer role.
So there was 1 actor to 1 actor ratio, understudy to overstudy. And we knew that Alex was going to be out for a few performances.
That's right.
We did have understudy rehearsals for that show because it was equity.
Yep.
So the guy that was understudying Alex, I think he definitely got support, costume checking and making sure everything was going to be ready for him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really feel that way, but also my actors also were never going to be sick or late. Like they're very punctual too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one where I'm a lot more embarrassed that I didn't fully memorize that one, because that would have actually been disastrous.
I mean, I was excited to go on. I don't know that it would have gone well, but that was, yeah.
Yeah. I think I felt really bugged by our schedule, which we were called for every rehearsal, and this is out in Oak Brook.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good, 45-minute drive out there and back in winter, because I think it was all February or March.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we knew going in that we would be called at every rehearsal, particularly being like we were kind of used as furniture movers. Stagehands, yeah.
It was, I think the kind of thing it would have been fine to just sell it that way. Because, if we'd just been sort of given more instructions that, like, you're going to be moving a lot of furniture and a lot of props, and we were doing a lot of props prep. It was a lot of just, backstage work, which is all perfectly legit. You just want to know what you're signing up for.
Totally.
I think they also had just had a regime change with their main stage manager had retired, and so there was a brand new stage manager when they were filling the shoes of somebody who had been doing that same job for a long time. So there was a lot of transition for the theater. It was a very warm production team.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they were really lovely folks, but I do remember it being a little fraught.
Yeah. Well, and I think going back to what you were saying about them kind of going through transition, because I think they had used our role originally were interns, and they were promoted as interns, like it was an intern program. But then all of a sudden with our show, we were understudies, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have the intern thing they do in the summer, right?
Yeah.
When they're outdoor. And so then it's very much in the contract. It's like, you're going to be building these sets.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for whatever reason, we didn't really understand that, or we didn't think that was what we were signing up for.
Exactly.
That's kind of news to us. Well, because we got to change the set. Like, we had our act, the one time we went on the stage was because we had to change the entire set around, which we did choreographed and with to music in a certain amount of time. And it was a fun challenge.
It was cute.
And we had one gag that we got to do for laughs. But I think it was because we did go on stage to do that every night that we were allowed equity points. if we hadn't been on stage to do that with that one gag, I don't think our roles would have qualified us for the EMC points that we got.
I see. It was nice to get those points. Not gonna lie.
It's the only points I've ever had.
Me
But
too.
it got me from 0 to whatever, 8.
6, 8.
Put me in the EMC program.
Exactly.
My overstudy was amazing. Gail Rastifer,
Gail Rasterfer.
huge fan.
is awesome.
Huge fan. She taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, getting to understudy Leslie Ann was wonderful because she's just such an amazing human. But I'm also, I don't know if I have a decade on her, at least 5 years. Like I'm older than she is. Whereas when I got to understudy Gail, it was actually getting to have a mentor who knew the business better than I did and who'd been in Chicago longer than I had. And I got to glean so much wisdom from her, and I appreciated it so very much.
Yeah. And I'd say that for the rest of the cast, too. Alex and Christian and Kevin, they all gave us rides at some point. And we're all very supportive and kind.
This is Scott jumping in with a little edit. Kat and I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged Allison Vesely, who was the director of Rough Crossing, who was a very kind woman, a really great director. We enjoyed working with her very much and miss her very dearly.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just going to always be a mystery why I fucking didn't memorize those lines. Like, what? And it's stoppered, too. Like, it's not like it was a bad script. It's a great script. I think, like, now I understand a lot better, like, the process of understudying, because you're kind of left out there, you know, without any support. It's very hard to just build a method when you're drowning. And I talked in a previous podcast about how I used to not want to memorize anything before first rehearsal and how stupid that was, especially on an understudy gig.
Oh.
Yeah. So lessons learned. Never do again.
Well, I mean, I do think having an understudy rehearsal is essential, and you need to have it before tech. Right? I mean, it's such an important thing. I mean, I understand you probably can't have an understudy rehearsal before blocking is set. Right? But having those, I think, is essential to cast unity, to team unity, and to make sure the understudies have a chance to try to support each other. I think, more than one is probably ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of them.
I think it's time for the hustle, yeah?
It's time for the hustle. Yay. So part of what we want to do is demystify how people make money in this business. So, Kat, what do you do to make a living?
I was in the gig economy before it was fashionable, I like to say. In 2009, right around the housing crash, I got laid off from my admin job and took my unemployment and became a yoga instructor and pounded pavement until I had enough to work yoga full time. So I did that for a couple years, and then maybe 3 years after I was doing yoga full time, I got recruited to be a leadership and communication coach, corporate.
Nice.
Really? Did you have a background in that?
I have a communications degree, and they saw on LinkedIn that I had taught dialects. I had been a dialect coach, and some of this work is not helping American people sound like not American, but helping not American people pronounce things in a way that helps them be understood. We try to go away from the phrase accent elimination. That's not a great phrase, but that was one of the reasons I was recruited, was they understood, you understand speech sounds in the mouth and you can tell people how to make them so they can change what they're saying? I said, yes, I can do that. And so at first it was straight up presentation skills, how to get your point across, how to be better on camera, how to be better up in front of people, how to deal with nerves. Sometimes it was like acting lessons, but for corporate people. And then after I did that for several years, I got enough corporate knowledge that now I'm not just a communication coach, but a leadership and communication coach. So now I do things like why can't I motivate my team? Or why can't I get my boss to do what I want? It's a lot of how do I get my message across to the right people in the right way? So I'm working with people who are doing change management or finance or banking or consulting and helping them, or they're trying to get promoted or they're trying not to get fired. And whatever it is that's going on, I help them.
Nice.
Very cool.
So I'm halftime yoga and halftime corporate and leadership and communication coach. And over the years, I have also done standardized patient work, which I'm sure you've had many an actor in here that do that. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to use our acting skills in the educational setting. I would say the most money I've ever made acting has been with Great Works Theater, which is school tours.
Yep.
That from that's one of the only theaters from which I've gotten a 1099, which means I made enough money that what's the threshold, like 650, 750?
Yeah, well, it was 600 at least up until a year ago.
So I used to get a 1099 from Great Works regularly. So that was like one of the sources of my income every year.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
So those are my major. I sometimes I solo. I sing at like a church or a wedding or a funeral or something like that, and I'll make a little bit of money doing that. But my major sources are yoga and communication and leadership coaching.
Are you working, is that freelance or are you still like through a consulting
The yoga
firm,
is totally freelance.
Okay.
And I work for a couple gyms and, I've worked for different yoga studios over the year, had private clients. Right now I am teaching yoga on Zoom from my living room.
Yeah.
The communication coaching, I got recruited on LinkedIn, which is as far as I know, why that's supposed to be there.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's what that's for.
Yeah.
The company's called Speak by Design, and I am thrilled that I am not a freelancer, but that I have a boss who I don't really like to be the boss. It's really, really great having someone else to handle big problems and to answer questions and help you when you need help.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
great. So how often, prior to the pandemic, were you acting regularly still along with everything else?
I would do a couple shows a year.
That's
at least
right.
nighttime shows. And then, like I said, sometimes at one point I was doing 4 shows in rep with Great Works. So I, had like the Christmas show. So I kind of knew I was going to spend a lot of days out in the burbs doing Christmas Carol. And then in the winter, we do the money show. We were telling kids about what is a checking account versus a savings account. And I was doing Fractured Fairy Tales. Oh, and in October, I was doing Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a certain amount of seasonal predictability with Great Works during the day.
Nice.
That's fun.
That's awesome. I loved doing the school tours. They're just great audiences. Is that has that been the case for you in Great Works?
Yeah, kids are a wonderful audience because you know how they feel about your performance. They care less for politeness. And so if they love what you're doing, they'll let you know. And if they aren't with you, you'll know. Yeah. So they keep you sharp. Yeah. I could say the same about teaching undergraduates at Ohio State University. I would know if things were going well or whether they were not.
Yeah.
That kind of audience, isn't going to sit quietly and attentively, even if they're not thrilled, which, a Steppenwolf audience member may not love what you're doing, but they'll be polite.
Or at least they'll go to sleep.
Well, that can happen anywhere, I guess.
Yeah. So these Great Works shows, almost all the kids shows that I've done have been solo shows.
Oh.
And so I'm doing direct address to the audience. So like if there is like some distraction happening, I can like call it out and just be like, okay, well, let's go back over here. We're in 1865 now. How did you kind of manage the audience with that? I'm just curious.
All the Great Works shows are original. They're mostly written by Matt O'Brien. And so he had a lot of audience participation built in to the shows. And certain sections were allowed improv. And there was a certain formula to them. And once you sort of got into the company and began to do these shows, you knew, like, okay. And then there was usually a point where a child would be brought up on stage. Like, we usually knew that was a really good technique to not only give one kid a really cool experience, but to have everybody go and pay attention because one of ours is on stage. Sometimes we'd pull teachers up, but that was always part of the script.
Sure.
Certain jokes. There was a lot of very precise timing. Like the jokes were very choreographed and you had to like come running in and hit the thing and throw the oatmeal in the person's face just as the sound cue hit to be, this is snow, right?
Oh, that's cute.
A lot of action, a lot of running around, a lot of costume changes behind a flat.
Yeah.
And that is also a space where we did a lot of understudy work, where people had needed subs all the time. So in Fractured Fairy Tales, which had I think 6 roles, like I had my track that I did for years, and then when I finished doing the show, I would often get a call. They're like, "Hey, can you come do Fractured Fairy Tales, but not your track?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And that company had a culture of grab that poor understudy and drag them where they needed to go. I think eventually they began filming a good performance and giving that to an understudy to be like, here's the show with the choreography and all the blocking, learn it this way. And because they are a sort of minimal rehearsal company in general, not just for understudies, but for everybody. They were, and that was partly, trying not to take up people's time too much. So their policy was, you need to be memorized very quickly. We block the show really quickly, and then we get it up on its feet and expect notes after every performance.
That sounds so good to me right now.
Yeah. Grab the understudy, help them, grab them backstage, pull their costume, we always had like 12 layers of costumes on, right? So it's just like, take off the cape, put on the hat, take off the hat, grab your staff, right? That kind of thing. We all have like piles of costumes and props backstage. Like, this is my pile. What are you doing here?
Oh, that's fun.
What else do we talk about in the hustle?
That's it.
That's pretty much it.
We're going to take a break now.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll have more with Kat Evans after this.
Hooray.
You're on in 5, and we're back with Kat Evans. And now it's time for the breakdown. And this week, our topic is accents and dialects.
Oh,
I know. We didn't
Yeah,
even know you was
right.
coming for us with that. But
really?
it's so
Do you like dialects? And
I do.
why?
I do. It's one of my favorite things. I'm an outside-in actor, so I just love anything physical or vocal music that I can sink my teeth into. I was never that good at inside-out stuff. I was never good at sense memory or pretending the audience wasn't there. I was good at put your elbow here and apply pressure with this muscle. And and so dialect work it's all technical, and I love that. It's something about giving my part of my brain a puzzle to enmesh itself with so that it doesn't mess with me. Because otherwise my brain will be judging me and, telling me that this is not right and whatever. So, having a structure to release into, I find freeing.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
That's
I've never
awesome.
heard that like that.
Well, have you either of you doing Suzuki or viewpoints?
Yes, enough to know what they are. You know what I mean? Like I've had processes that,
Yeah. Same. Yeah. For viewpoints, I'm not actually familiar with Suzuki.
Well, Suzuki is really, really difficult physical work, right? It's really not. It's not for all bodies, at least not fairly. I'm sure there's got to be a way to accommodate for all bodies, but I don't think it's out there yet.
Is it like weight sharing and that
It's kind of like half ballet, half martial arts. So it's really hard on your knees and your quads, and you're holding still as a statue, and you're stomping on the ground all the time. And strangely enough, I really took to Suzuki because it was so hard, and that gave me something. It really just quieted my chatter, my brain chatter. Viewpoints, which is so much more egalitarian, and there's so many options. You can react in so many different ways, and you can. It's such a beautiful improvisational thing, but I had a really hard time with it because the options overwhelmed me. And so I would get in my head and I would be like, oh, I can't look at that person. It's too stimulating. And then they'd yell, Kat Evans, you're looking at the floor again. And I'm like, I know. I found it it's much harder for me to use it in the way that it should be this incredible liberating tool to stimulate creativity and ensemble work, and I'm a huge fan, but I'm not that good at it.
I see.
And Suzuki, which I need, I just feel like it's important to acknowledge that it's tough to participate if you don't have really good knees, and the willing, and it's like cardio, it's hard. It's hard. And it's hard on the body. And so it's not going to be a good tool for everyone, but it required enough of me that it helps my brain. And so that gets me back to dialects, which is, there's speech sounds, and I loved learning them. And again, I'm an audio person, so hearing something and getting into the music of it, that very much helps me release into a character because I've got that structure to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I've only had to do actual for real dialects a couple times in my career. I've gotten away with not really needing to. I mean, I don't often play other cultures, but I have a lot of vocal variety, and it's not always put upon. It's just like, this is how this character talks. This will happen. But to your point, there have been a couple of instances in my career where I could not find her. Right? Like and it's like, I know, like there's times where, like there's a disconnect. Like, I don't know, I'm not going to be able to breathe truth into her or him. I've played men as well. But then there's sometimes where I know I'm connecting emotionally, but I'm not executing from a place of truth. And it, it's really, really troubling. And that's when that's when I go outside. Like, what can I know she's in here, but something's keeping her from coming out here. What do I do? And that's when I start to play with my voice and vocal variety and cadence. That's when I start to play with my physical. A lot of times it's just easier. Like, I could just get everything happens all at once, but every now and then I hit this wall, and it requires that external examination. What does she sound like? How does she walk? Is she left-handed? Is that going to help? Is he tall? Does he think he's taller than he really is? Is that going to help? Like, what parts of this external thing is going to get me locked in because I can feel them inside me and I just can't get them out? I am grateful that I don't have to do that every character, because it is a lot. I'm grateful to be able to know that I can get to a play, or, get inside a character, and it just requires, because, sometimes you can't, sometimes you don't know you can't. And there's that's a weird thing. You don't know what's wrong. So I'm glad it's rare and that I've identified it. And
have you noticed that there are certain types of scripts or types of dialogue that you take to, or others where it's the language that you're frustrated with or doesn't feel natural? Or
I don't know. I can't say, because I've never tried to connect the instances, like, is there a through line here? So I don't really know. One of the more fascinating ones for me was I'm from Detroit, and we did a play called Before and Laughter. It was a written kind of sketch play, and then it was also so we did that in whatever year, and then 10 years later was the year before I moved here. 2007, we did it again, right? Like as an anniversary revival. There were some rewrites. I was the only original cast/writer to return. And it's 10 years later, and I had a hard time bringing my character back to life. And so we were all baffled by it, of course I'm 10 years older, but also I wrote her, and so we were all just like, are we going to have to recast me? Like, maybe I can't do this. And I remember being at home, and I'm strong-willed, right? And I carry a lot of power, I'm going to say it like that, right? So I'm not really seen as meek or quiet or timid. And so I'm at home, and I'm just being tortured by it, because I think we should have to recast her, because for some reason in this version, that is what she is, meek and timid. And so then I start to talk like this while I'm rehearsing with myself. And all of a sudden, there she was, although I didn't play her this way the first time. But this is what she needed this time. And so, and then it clicked, and I was like, oh my God, I got it. And so, and of course, to even start with that kind of vocalization, it changed my physique, right? Because I have to get smaller, right? Because I'm clearly intimidated by everything around me based on how I sound. So it really, really fixed it. And I didn't tell the director. I just told him that I got it, and I couldn't wait to get to rehearsal. And then it just flowed. And so that was really that was so fascinating because I built her in the first place,
Yeah.
And so it was really, really kind of mind blowing. And it actually, people commented on seeing me, shrink in this way they never had before. And it was also a fun, exploration of something I didn't know I had in me, And I had an audition that required that the dialect was going to be in the show, but you didn't have to audition with the dialect, which I was really glad about, because I'm like, I can't maintain more than a couple words in a row. And so I was really trying to not to prepare my sides without the dialect. And again, I'm like, this doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right. I wasn't sure that the dialect would make it sound right because I don't know that I can do that. But I'm like, I gotta try it. And that script was written in the cadence that would have been that dialect. And so I don't really understand that I need to do the dialect until Thursday, and the audition is Saturday morning, and I've been working on it since Sunday, okay? And I have a day job and everything, but I'm like, I got to do something. And so I get on YouTube. I find this community organizations just interviewing these women from Nigeria, and I just, I try, and I go to that audition, and I did it, and I came out of there. I'm like, I don't ever have to hear from these people again because I fucking nailed it. And I didn't know I could do it. I was so proud. I was like crying. I called one of my friends, like, guess what I just did? It was stupid. But as it turned, I realized that she needed her accent in order to be in the moment for that size, she needed it, and I had to do it. And then I didn't get that. I got a call back, which, set me up flat. I'm like, I did it enough to get a call back. Mm-hmm. But then the next show that theater did, the same playwright, I was cast in that, and that character also had. And so that was my first full on arc that I had to maintain a dialect through the whole show. And I did it. But one of the things that I want to ask you about, and Scott, you too, I mean, we're going to let you talk, I swear, is the idea, so I struggle with the judgment, not even for myself, because I know I can't maintain any accent. It's not even about the quality of the accent. It's I'm barely making it, period. But, we tend to judge accents and dialects in a way that makes it seem like we think that everybody in a region speaks the same way, so it's always oh, they don't sound like that. We don't talk like that. When we all have a sound, we all sound different, even within regions, even within cities. And so I'm curious about both of your thoughts about whether or not you have strong judgments about any particular accents, and just what you think about that concept that there's somebody who can say.
Yeah, it's an important concept. And I know that inconsistency between actors or inconsistency in speech sounds in one actor can really throw me as an audience member. If I say, you said that word a different way 3 minutes ago, I can get real frustrated about that. And I certainly notice if people sound like they're, here's the thing, is I want to have a reasonable boundary where at least it sounds like we're in the same play. Mm-hmm. There should be some leeway there, right? We shouldn't all sound the same. We want to sound like we're in the same play, right? And not in and that could be more about acting style, really, than it is about dialect, right? If somebody's really pulling their Meisner while somebody else is pulling their Brecht, right? Yeah. So I think you make a really good point that you don't want to make dialects robotic. Life needs to be breathed into it, right? Whatever you're doing. I suppose you've seen the documentary that the voice actor world put out.
I didn't.
It was really lovely. It had like a lot of our favorite people, like the guy who plays SpongeBob and the people from Animaniacs and Adventure Time, a lot of the Cree Summer from Tiny Toon Adventures. Like really, really great documentary. And one of the things the voice actor said was they hate nothing more than someone saying, "Oh, I can do voices. Want to hear?" And then they'll quote a line from something. And so the voice actors would then say, "Yeah, can you read Shakespeare in that?"
Right.
They're like, once you can do a speech from Chekhov or Shakespeare in that dialect, then you've got a voice.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that's the most fun part. Is once you have the dialect, is getting to put different words on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I this topic actually came up because I'm working on an audition where I have to have a Polish dialect, which is great because I'm Polish. But I also haven't done a dialect in many, many years. And if I had, it was just a British one or, like an easy one that's like, or a Southern one. But this is like something else. And I don't usually have like a Eastern European that I go to, even though I have lots of people in my life who are Eastern European. I tend to not really like throw it back at them. So yeah, today, because I got the audition yesterday, today I've been just listening to Polish people speak English. Like one was a podcast about doing like investing in Poland. One was a really cute YouTube couple. The man is a Polish man and the girl is Filipino, and he's teaching her how to speak Polish. And I think they both speak English. I just kind of stumbled on their little YouTube channel and it was adorable. I was just like, oh my God, they're the cutest couple ever. So when thinking about the character, because this character is, I get the feeling that he's not verbose in either language. So, does it really make sense for me to be studying somebody who is speaking, like for the sake of, being heard in English as opposed to somebody who's like kind of stumbling through their English. So that's been the thing for me. And the judgment, like it's so hard to get over the judgment because like I'll say it out loud and I'll be like, that sounds Scottish. That sounds Irish. And audiences can be kind of sharp towards bad accents. And everybody has their idea of what a bad accent is. It's funny, I'm going through my voice stuff from college, and I did a life study where I interviewed my friend Elias and did like a monologue of him. Now, he is Dominican, and this was 2005, so probably doesn't happen anymore. But it was really great to go back and like kind of see like, oh, okay, I know this. Like, I know IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. I know consonant substitutions and vowel substitutions. It's just doing the work.
Having the time to do the work.
Yeah. Which luckily I have it now.
Right.
Hopefully I can pull something together for an audition.
That's a lot to pull off for an audition.
Yeah. And luckily it's only like 8 lines.
Yeah, okay.
And one of them is Polish, which is like the easiest line of them all. Because I can fake Polish.
Okay.
But like faking the dialect is like, I have to like.
That's so interesting.
Take a few steps back on that, Yeah. It's tough though, especially when you don't have like a process to go around it. I mean, imagine if I got this part, then I'd probably have a dialect coach that I would work with on some level. So yeah, I'm hoping that the casting directors and producers, whoever's watching it, is going to be kind. I know that they are looking for like actual Polish immigrant people to be this role, and there's probably an actor in Chicago who is a Polish immigrant, but hopefully I'm a better actor than them. I think the one time I can really think of me doing a dialect, it's so funny because it was this character, Bob Neal. He was it was in Wisconsin in 1930s, So, like, Midwestern dialect, but this man's fancy. It was like, you know what? Actually, I think he's going to kind of speak kind of British fancy sounding. It definitely helped me find the character in a big way because he is kind of self-important and fancy. So it's helpful in that way. But man, I'm not looking forward to being judged on my Polish accent at all.
The only ruling we like in judgment is you're hired. We like that verdict. Other than that, I remember getting one piece from a dialect coach that made me feel amazing, even though she was giving me criticism. I was doing an Irish play, and she said, Kat, you sound like you're from Donegal, and you need to sound like you're from Kerry. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay. I was like, that made me feel amazing. Like, given how regional Ireland is.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, I'll take that note. Thanks, lady.
Yeah, and I think audiences, like Kat said, I think audiences are more attuned to inconsistency than do you actually sound like you're where you say you're from, right? Like, that one's always bothered me, only because it's so vast. And I was doing a play set in New Orleans, and there was a New Orleans native in the cast who had no kind of drawl. And he just kept saying, "We don't talk like that." And the coach wasn't giving the rest of us like a deep draw. It was just like, some regional aspects of the area. And I was married to a man born and raised in New Orleans, and his parents were very close to this thing that this other man just kept saying, "We don't talk like that." And he would, like, it really frustrated him. And I've, observed that in other shows at other times as well. And I just don't get it. I'm like, if you live in New Orleans, even if you don't talk like that, there's a sound. There's a sound, and black people versus white people, like there's a sound. And I don't know why you would think that everybody should just sound like Midwesterners in this play, like it really was. I mean, and I don't know, bless his heart, he had a touch of New Orleans and his voice, like, I guess just because he didn't have like an exaggerated kind of draw, which she wasn't really, she's just trying to like pull us out of pure Midwestern so we can, the audience isn't distracted by us being set in New Orleans. And yeah, he had the toughest time with it.
I can imagine.
And I'm just like, call my ex-mother-in-law, have a conversation with her, see how she sounds. Tell me if she sounds like you. She doesn't. She was born and raised there too. So, like, I don't know why people think there is a one way for any of them. Any accent, any dialect, I mean, regional, whatever. Like, there's, even in ASL, I sign a little, like, there's regional differences in ASL, and no two people will have the same rhythm or complete the hand shapes the exact same way. Some people sign with one hand and they get it, they are doing their thing with one hand. And so I just wish people would like let it go. Everybody work on consistency, and like you said, we're all in the same play or in the same area.
Some sort of thing that connects us to this moment in this space in this time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important.
An on-screen example to illustrate the point you're making, Elana, would be Letterkenny. Right? Because not everyone on Letterkenny talks the same at all. And yet the whole point of the show is that it's a town of 5,000 people out in the middle of nowhere, right? So but there's not a consistent dialect throughout that show. I mean, the main character, who's also the creator of the show, has a very distinct way of talking, but the actress who plays his own sister doesn't speak the same way.
That's
and I think that's all right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's never a moment where I'm like, you don't sound like you're from Letterkenny. Right? I'm like, no, I buy it. I believe they're all from Letterkenny. It's fine.
Nice.
I mean, they also have a very distinct acting style on that show, right? Like, I mean, distinct camera angles and things like that. And I buy it every time.
Totally. Yeah, that's Letterkenny on Hulu. It's a wonderful comedy. Raunchy. It's raunchy.
Very
right?
raunchy.
It's raunchy.
Still got some gender issues.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
But it's especially for writing and style, I thought it was, and I only discovered it in the pandemic, so that's why
Yeah,
it was
me
top
too.
of brain.
Yeah.
I know it's been around longer than that. I'm pretty behind on things on screens.
That's okay.
I learned about Letterkenny just now. So
Oh,
Today
okay.
years old.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on dialects?
Well, I could tell you about the one I was working on before the world shut down.
Yeah, sure.
I was playing Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, oh yeah.
And yeah, it was a tough, good challenge that thrilled me. The lady who was playing John F. Kennedy, so we were sort of in the same boat together, but we had very different processes. And also, John and Jack Bobby and Jack didn't really sound that similar either, except they sort of did. I mean, all the Kennedys, it was a puzzle. It was a weird puzzle, and it was a very talky play. It was called 13 Days. It was about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved the challenge, and that didn't mean it was easy. Like, I didn't say I was like mastering it or anything, but I was like, right? Yeah. And the lead who was playing Jack Kennedy was having, or at least her outward expression of her process was less happy. I think she was amazing. Yeah. She was amazing at it, but she expressed a lot more frustration than I did. We were just about to go up, and actually I can tie this back to understudying, because just before the pandemic we were in previews and my uncle died and I had to go down to St. Louis for the funeral. And so with very little notice, Sahara Glasner took a script and went on in front of an audience as the narrator in 13 Days. She did my role, and she was, I presume, I wasn't there, but I'm sure she was phenomenal because I know Sahara Glasner. Nice. So props. I should have waited that for props. Sorry.
Well. When you are learning the dialect of a particular person, how is that different from kind of like a fictional character?
Oh, pressure's on.
Yeah.
But you have primary sources. Well, if you do. I don't know how many recordings we have of Abraham Lincoln.
Right, yeah.
But we certainly have words. Thank God for YouTube. Mm-hmm. And thank God that Bobby was an incredible orator and gave beautiful speeches that I didn't mind listening to over and over again. And I was super grateful to have that source, just to listen to him. And I was also blessed to get to play somebody who I truly admire and wish we had politicians like that right now. Really, truly. He was such an intelligent person fighting for what he thought was right. Wasn't always correct, but, always was working with good intentions. Still, I'm sure, a very flawed human that I would take issue with a lot of his personal life. But in terms of his statesmanship, it was somebody I was thrilled to get to research and watch how he would react, like when he was turning on the polite and when he was turning on the tiger, when he needed to go after a reporter, which he sometimes did. But then there were times where he would deflect with charm, or he would deflect with the polite and things like that. And he had this really high-pitched voice. He had a real tenor, like really light tenor voice. And then, there's a bit of Boston in that, but none of the Kennedys sounded anything what we usually think of as Boston. They're ridiculously refined and like, all on their isolated palatial mansion out in the middle of nowhere, right? Right. So it's not your Southie. It's not Boston as most folks would think of as Boston. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so City Lit says that whenever the world opens up again and we're all vaccinated, that show's going to go back up. So I look forward to taking on Bobby again.
City Lit's production of 13 Days will be coming back this September. You can find out more information at citylit.org. Yeah, my only thing would be Abraham Lincoln that I've done that's even close. And Abraham Lincoln comes with a lot of baggage for audiences, because we all have this idea of him, even though there is no primary resources, or at least to his voice. I mean, I kind of went off of, the general knowledge, like, our 77 years ago. And, I did the research, especially initially, and found that, like, he has a bit more of a high voice than we usually think of. And so, like, that was a nice little thing that, like, oh, okay, cool. I can tap into that. And I mean, with that show in particular, there were only like 3 speeches that I did in it. Everything else was like about his childhood and his family and all that kind of stuff. So with that, I was able to just basically play it with my natural dialect, or at least a like faux Southern dialect, because he was in, Springfield and Southern Indiana. It wasn't something that I put too much thought into. That's a weird way to say that. But it seemed to work out. It's a tough thing when you're playing a character that's beloved, whether they're real or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's time for props. And in props, we give shouts out to understudy actors that either have understudied us or that we've seen in shows as understudies or been in shows with them. We can also shout out stage managers and assistant directors who help us get the job done. Or you can shout out any actor performance that you liked, that you saw, that you were with, that, I don't know. What's your props, Kat?
Yeah, as you said that speech, I was reminded that the one time I got to see Hamilton, I think 90% of the character roles were all understudies.
Ah.
I saw almost like only Angelica was the usual actor who played Angelica. I think the entire cast, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. It was Chicago or New York?
Chicago.
Okay.
Chicago. Yeah. So yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, I would love to call out Sahara Glasner, who understudied me last second in 13 days, just before the pandemic shut everything down. And she went on during a preview for me, book in hand, and bless her for that. I'd like to call out Betsy Pennington Taylor. I saw her understudy the Mad Woman of Chaillot, and she was amazing.
Cool.
It was real, real, real good.
Awesome. Any stage managers or assistant directors?
Oh man, Lindsay Miller, who directed or stage managed the first time I did Gross Indecency, The 3 Trials of Oscar Wilde. I was very impressed with her work.
I know Lindsay. I went to college
Oh,
with
yeah.
her. She's
Yay.
awesome. Yeah. Cool. That's props.
Yeah.
Yay.
I usually sometimes have another prop, but I ran out a few episodes ago, I think. So
I haven't seen her understudy, but I know she's done it a lot, and I think she's amazing. I'm going to shout out to Kim Fukawa.
Yes. Oh.
I am hoping to get her on here.
Yeah.
She is
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh. I don't know why her name hasn't. It must be on our list.
I put it on our list.
Okay, cool. I might have had it on our list.
But yeah,
before,
I hear she's understudied a lot. I've only worked with her for real, like in actual spaces, or like now in voiceover stuff. But yeah, she's
I know
amazing.
her. She was understudying. She wasn't understudying me, but she was understudying a show I was in. That's how I know her.
Nice.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Cool. Props. Yay.
Props. So this is where we talk about what's next, but we heard about something on the break, and so will you tell us about your writing?
Yeah, I am writing for Yippee TV, which is a streaming network, a family-oriented network, and it's also Christian in content. So if you've heard of VeggieTales, they bought every episode of VeggieTales and then went gotten the creator of VeggieTales and started making new episodes of VeggieTales. I'm not writing for VeggieTales though. I write I'm a co-writer. I'm on the writing team for the Daily Devo show, where we teach kids Bible stories or talk about theological concepts or just moral concepts like integrity for the 3 to 6 age set. So explain integrity, for 3 to 6 year olds in 5 minutes. You get one actor and maybe one puppet.
And I bet you nail it.
They're really cool. Like it's the same like I love structure. I love structure. I need those parameters to release into. Yeah. And I can now say at the tender age of 42 that I have written things that have gotten shot.
Yes.
Which is super neat.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So if you have small children and you don't mind Christian content, Yippee TV.
Do it.
Nice.
I'm going to check it out. I don't have any children. Do you have anything else that's coming up? Like,
I do. I am part of Starlight Radio Dreams. We are in our 5th season. We were already a radio theater company, and so the only thing that changed was that we stopped performing in person.
Yeah.
We continued and went into season 5 during the pandemic, and while we've had some cast shifts, some personnel shifts, so I'm now, for the first 3 or 4 years I was in the company that all I did was act, but now I'm one of the small core writing team and editing team. We're very much an ensemble writer team, so we're giving a lot of feedback to each other, which requires a certain amount of tough skin and craft to how you give feedback. But anyway, Starlight Radio Dreams, we have an original show every month.
That's awesome.
Live streamed, and then which it's $10 to hit the show on the live stream, but then if you want to stream the podcast later for free, you can, and we love you either way.
Nice. So, Kat, I don't know. The writing is new, right, for you?
I used to write more. I, wrote a full length in grad school that won some awards and stuff like that. And I also did solo work. I do a show on Annie Oakley. I do a show on the mental health system. What's my other one? I had a third one. I swear I had 3 shows. What was my other show? I'll come up with it. Anyway, so that was in my earlier years.
Right.
In my earlier years. And so, yeah, I've been writing for Starlight for a couple of years. And yeah, every now and then I've gotten to be a part of things.
Mm-hmm.
But, right now I'm also writing a play about the 150th anniversary of Fourth Presbyterian Church here in Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's the one that's, if you've probably seen it, it's on Michigan Avenue across from the Hancock Building.
Yes, yeah.
So just north of Chicago Avenue. And that church, that building went up around 1915. But the church as a congregation has existed since just after the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of cool, interesting Chicago history wrapped up in it. And, as like when it was built, there was nothing there but the beach and some factories and some taverns. And there was nothing there. And then as Chicago was built up, and then it became residential, and there was like factories and residentials and all boarding houses. And then eventually those went away for high rises and more like luxury homes. And then at one point in the 60s, the Palm Olive building, which was like, sort of Art Deco fancy high rise, got bought out by Playboy. And so the Palm Olive building became the Playboy building. And so this church that used to be like the towering structure that dominated Michigan Avenue is now dwarfed by all these huge other structures. And then it was like, Michigan Avenue, where Playboy is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
that plays for the church?
For the church, yeah. They turned 150 this February, and so obviously we're in a pandemic, so I don't know that the script's going to come out anytime soon. Sure. But I have been given the honor of writing it.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Maybe I'm just going to put this out into the universe just to see if the podcast network speaks to Jesus. But I really want Wydetta Carter in the show, if like directing or acting, if I can get her. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. That in my heart of hearts, I'm probably not even gonna direct this show. Maybe she can direct it for me. I think she should be involved because I think she's amazing.
Nice. Kat, what else? Like, how's your life? How are you keeping sane through like this shit?
During the pandemic, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, yeah.
I played when I was in middle school. 13 and such. I don't know that I ever played it well. That was, again, that was the early 90s, and I don't think I even understood it. All I understood was I get a character and we're telling a story together. Great. And they'd be like, right, so now roll for an attack. And I'd be like, la, 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 who's in love with me? So I don't know that I really got the rules of the game when I was younger, but I'm playing it now, and now I have my own dice, and I really love it. It's super, super fun. I'm in a couple different campaigns, and that has been a wonderful way to stay sane and stay connected to others and get to create characters. In the pandemic, I'm cooking a lot. I started drawing again. I'm not very good at that, but and I guess I'm learning the piano.
Oh, yeah.
I've been singing for a long time, but there's nowhere to sing right now. So I have been, I have an incredible teacher I found originally at the Access School of Music in Ravenswood. So shout out to them because they're super affordable. Nice. And was given this incredible teacher named Elodor de Paula. He's from Brazil. And so he has been teaching me Bach and Villa-Lobos and Russian composers and all kinds of really, really great stuff. So super grateful for having the piano to bang on and release all my feelings into during this rough time.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Elana, what's up with you?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
So, everything's regular. I'm happy to be alive. There you go.
What is your day job, Elana?
I am an executive assistant at a manufacturer where I barely executive assist and just do a lot of other stuff, which is great. It's designed to keep me interested because an assistant, I am not. But I'm a helper, yes. So it works itself out. I like to help people do things. So, yeah.
How about you, Scott? What's keeping you sane?
Actually, right now, I'm advising on a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream at Children's Theater of Western Springs. I started working there because Eddie Sugarman, who was our director for Cupid and Psyche, 2009, I reached out to him a couple of years ago and was just like, hey, I'm a teacher now. You got jobs? And he was like, yes, come on over. And all of a sudden I was directing 12 Angry Men for the high school production.
Nice.
Yeah. So now we're doing Midsummer, and I'm the advisor. We've got 2 student directors, 13 actors. We've only been online. Well, we were in person for auditions and callbacks, and then we've been online for table read and for all our table work, which is where we are now, and it's been so much fun. I'm not like a Shakespeare super fan at all, but it's really fun to play with this script and see the kids learn it and see them kind of, take to it or not. It's been awesome. I might like Shakespeare more than I thought. Maybe it's just Midsummer because Midsummer's really easy. So it might just be a Midsummer thing.
I learned to like Shakespeare when I got to play men.
For
growing up, I was sure I would like Shakespeare because I was a studious, nerdy person, and I just thought that studious, nerdy people would clearly like Shakespeare.
Of course.
And then whenever I actually chewed on it, I was always a little bit like, and again, you'd think with my structure-loving soul, that would be a huge thing for me. But I was so frustrated with the gender dynamics. And in grad school, when at one point we were enacting, I don't know, maybe 3 or something, they were like, what role do you really, really want to play? And I was like, Harry Hotspur. And they were like, okay, that's the scene you get.
Was that from Henry or one of the?
Yeah, it's one of the Henrys.
Okay.
And for the first time, I was like, I love this. I feel alive. I feel so connected to this material. I would have that conversation so many times. And you'd be like, but the women in Shakespeare are so strong. And I would be like, I don't like their options. So I always feel weird saying that because I feel like I should love Shakespeare. P.S. I have a hard time with the Bible too. I'm supposed to love that too. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, both of those are quite valid.
Thank you. I would love to hear more about your pandemic coping mechanisms. What's getting you through the day?
Like me, Elana?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't really have to cope. I felt like I was born for the isolation the pandemic brought me.
Nice.
I'm the youngest of 5 children by 8 years, so I spent a lot of time alone and with my imagination. And I also, I live in a place, this is my 3rd year in this apartment, and I love it in a way I didn't love my previous place. I liked my previous place, but I had already been really wanting to have reasons to stay here. like, obligation wise, and I wasn't getting them. I worked at a job that I would normally have to go to, and then there would be rehearsals, just endlessly obligated. And so to not have to leave here, and I can work from home very well. My nonprofits I work, I was already working on from home, and I have Legos. And for my birthday, I had the first of my world, the first quarantine birthday. I think the shelter in place order went in on the 20th of March, and my birthday's the 21st. So so I had this Lego set for 2 years that I hadn't had the time to play with.
Oh,
so that
snap.
was the thing. I put together my Lego treehouse on my birthday. And I don't binge a lot of shows, so I have this list that's been growing. Like, people keep telling me it's right beside my television. But I'm like, there's so much else to do, including just sit here and play a game on my phone, because I literally don't have to be anywhere. So I really kind of took to it. But I also found a lot of my friendships were deepening, and not because I end up with a very small pod of people, and I didn't even really see them at the same time. I have like one standing Friday night hangout with a friend of mine, and then like an occasional small gathering. But just through talking and actually, some missteps that created openings for some conversations that may not have been had without those missteps, which may not have happened without the pandemic. So that's been a thing. And just overall, I've been good with those parameters. And I have some other life stuff going on that has made me not feel happy and great, but they haven't really been connected to the pandemic. So I'm going to have a hard time restoring to like normal life. And I've talked with my boss about it, because I know I've been going back to the office once a week for a long time, and then not at all for a chunk of time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come back once a week for now, but at some point I'm going to have to, get up and take my ass to work, and I'm not really ready, and they're like, I am fine on the screens, like I feel like I'm going to have the opposite. Everybody was so devastated. I'm going to be devastated to actually have to return to normal life. So there's that. Thanks for asking.
I just imagine you like leaving your house for a rehearsal and just be like, ah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was getting like that before the pandemic. So now that I got what I always wanted, like, it's going to be like,
Yeah.
So hard.
It's funny thinking about getting back to normal whenever that happens. I regretted immediately when the pandemic happened that I didn't like go out drinking after shows more, or like not that it had to be drinking, but just interacting and enjoying company with cast members and stuff. I mean, granted, we were in the run of Here Lies Henry when the pandemic hit. There's just so much of like, but I wanted to talk to the people and I wanted everybody to see it. And so I imagine when things are back that half of the time I'm going to take that opportunity to get a drink after rehearsal or whatever. Half the time I'll still do my usual thing, which is go home. But like maybe like a little bit more often I'm going to make that effort to like go out and be social because we lost it for so long. All right. Well, on that note, Kat. Oh, actually, you know what? We've been doing this for the last few episodes. Like, since we're wrapping up, is there one piece of advice that you would give to an actor who's starting out, whether it's understudy related or not? What would you give as advice?
I think the conversations we're having in Chicago right now about safety are vital, and they were conversations that I was told the wrong things to when I was young. Mm-hmm. That you had to keep your head down and be willing to do anything. Yeah. And those are not okay or safe, and that no one working anywhere should ever think that. And I feel like the Chicago theater scene is really working at eliminating unsafe theater practices and predatory practices, and whether that's sexual safety. I mean, we're having a lot more conversations about racial equity, and I think we need those so very badly, and we need to have all the young people know that your safety is so important. No one should ever hurt you or coerce you into doing anything. And, I'm so proud of Chicago for having the Not in Our House movement. Mm-hmm. And there have been lots of theater companies that have been outed as predatory. And although every one of those processes is horrible and it's horrible to be wrapped up in it, but we need to get rid of that. We need to get rid of all these practices that were not isolated. It was baked into a lot of our training. Mm-hmm. And into a lot of how we thought it worked or how it had to work. Yeah. A lot of us were really told that this is just how it is. And if you want to make it, your job is to put up with it. And I'm really proud that we, especially those of us who are doing this for almost no money, right? I mean, this is not even workplace situations when most of us don't have a union to protect us. Yeah. And whether or not that union's doing that is another conversation for those in the union. Yeah. I'm sure they are having that. But so, yeah, I would say to anyone young, know that you are precious and sacred and that your safety is absolutely the most important thing. And don't be afraid to speak out, say no, or walk away.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Kat, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy I got to meet you, Elana.
Same. I was just about to say that very thing.
Yay. And thing one, it's been too long. Your energy, I have missed it so.
Likewise very much.
Thank you.
And happy trails until we meet again.
Yes.
Until we meet again.
Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Kat Evans and that it gives greater insight into the art of understudying.
Send us a question or give us a suggestion of someone we should interview to understudypodcast@gmail.com.
Or hit us up at understudypod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
We want to thank all of our Patreon subscribers, especially Marcella Huff, Stanley Sava,
Andrew Sava, and Rebecca Lawson. If you would like to support the show, you can head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/understudypod.
Our theme song and all other music are by Laura McKenzie.
Our episodes are edited by me and produced by the two of us.
Duh. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked it, please hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice and tell your friends.
If you hated it, tell your enemies.
And their parents.
And their step-parents.
Yeah, them. Okay, bye. Bye.